So while sitting here watching the Monster Hunter Wilds trailer for the 7,564,325th time, I remembered a certain moment in Sunbreak that was quite magical. Open your eyes.
What?
I know, right?
They can't do that!
Frontier is real!
Oh yes, my fellow hunters, welcome. As I said then and say now, Frontier is real, as we have long accepted thanks to Espinas coming into Sunbreak. But not just Espinas, that's the thing. Frontier's given us a lot of little bits that we might not directly associate to it, but certainly have roots there, such as the entire hunting AI companion system with the followers in Sunbreak. That is just a modified version of Frontier's AI Hunter Companion playbook, a very potent tool and one that was really quite good to have. Shout out to the Crab Force. But it doesn't have to stop there, right? And it probably necessarily won't stop there. Because when we had the interview with the Sunbreak director, he said Espinas came about because of Frontier's shutdown, and given the large number of people that loved it, he wanted to put something in Sunbreak for them, as a little token of, hey, we still got you. And that is, of course, what happened. And then we got Flaming Espinas past that, so technically 2 monsters from Frontier already main series canonized. That's all well and good. And while the Sunbreak director isn't the director of Wilds, that honor goes to Yuya Takuda, who also directed World, it's been said that he has complete freedom to just kind of do what he wants, run with a vision, and go crazy in Wilds. And we've already kind of seen that from the trailer, this supposedly open world-looking experience filled with fields of monsters, lightning strikes, weird pylons, and a new mount and 2 weapons, and what the hell is going on? Yeah, it certainly seems like he is using that freedom, and I am all for it. But the director of Sunbreak won't be unique in being a fan of Frontier and knowing the scope of Frontier's player base, because it cannot be understated how popular it was in its heyday. So to me, I don't think we have seen the end of Frontier's influence, especially when it comes to Monster Hunter Wilds and what we might find there. And in fact, I'm almost 99.9% sure we already have a Frontier mechanic in Wilds from just the trailer that we have. We have, of course, this focus on lightning strikes, on weather changing, and, well, the hunter actually having to run from not just the bears, but the weather itself, it would seem. On top of the herbivores being literally evolved to deal with this lightning. On top of the pylons being put there by someone or someone's however long ago, built to cope with the lightning. The lightning, the pylons, the mystery, and what that all means is its whole other thing. There's plenty of themes tying to various mythologies, gods, and legends, and basically, go watch those couple videos on that. But in essence, what we know for a fact happens is you're hunting along, suddenly it rolls over, dust, darkness descends, lightning strikes, and it affects the creatures on the ground. We know it does because it charges up the herbivores' little lightning rod backs, presumably the males. And there's no reason to believe that if you were to get struck by lightning during these lightning moments, it would damage you, hurt you, maybe the monsters too. And that's a Frontier thing. In the Frontier map, the Highland, well, it can be beautiful and sunny and peaceful, but it can also be very much not that. It can turn to torrential rain and lightning storms. So while you're hunting, such as this beautiful Leviathan here with his crystals and all his shenanigans, lightning randomly strikes around the zone you're in, and if you do indeed stand in it, you get shocked, damage, and all the usual accoutrement to being, you know, struck by lightning. And if you have any confusion whatsoever, what happens when you get struck by lightning?
The same thing that happens to everything else.
That line will never cease to get me in that film. You know, Toad throughout that fight was supposed to make various Toad references, which is why Storm phrased it as what happens to a Toad struck by lightning, but it all got cut out, so it just makes her look a bit mental. In any case, we have then that going on. This weather affecting the hunting field from Frontier. Now, this could be completely a coincidence. Of course it is. It's not like it's a crazy original idea to go, hey, let's make dangerous weather happen while hunting, and then both the hunters and the monsters have to deal with that, and maybe some monsters will use that, like the herbivores. I bet there will be a large monster that has lightning rod-esque capabilities and can turn the weather into its powers. But the bottom line here is that, yeah, for me, Frontier is far from done, and its influence is far from finished affecting Monster Hunter as it goes into its future. I think that is very clear and not really crazy to say. And with that in mind then, what would I actually want to see from Frontier make its way, well, into Monster Hunter Wilds? Of course, it's easy to just immediately look at something like, well, just put in all the cool, crazy monsters! And, yeah, I mean, do put in all the cool, crazy monsters. If I had to choose specifically a few to point out and go, that's the one, with what we currently know about Wilds, the environment, and indeed the weather, it would be Torridcless, the kind of owl moth thunderbird, which I absolutely adore. I really, really do. It would be quite the sight flying across this open-looking world with its plumage shining but still containing the power of the storm. It really is a champion monster design and is by far and away one of the best ones in Frontier. I also think it looks quite, you know, reasonable and like a mainline monster, which definitely helps, and it isn't crazy ridiculous and could quite easily be transferred and given a proper fight, easily making it around Apex C flagshipy level, just under, but certainly still worth a go. The other one, then, should be Kuarusepusu, which is this crystal leviathan that does inhabit the Highlands. It looks fairly plain, but also I quite like how it looks, the light-reflecting crystals growing out of it, and it's a very, very interesting leviathan. A land-living one, which is nice, and I have to believe the leviathans will come back in a strong way in Wilds. It just kind of makes sense. When it's sunny out, he can use the crystals to reflect light, he can flash, he can channel beams through them, and then when it's raining and stormy, well then he can call down the lightning like lightning rods and use that aspect of it. He's very much a double up weather viable creature that would play into that, hey, we need a large monster that actually plays into the weather while being a type of wyvern that we certainly want to see more of. The other thing that's easy to say is, hey, weapons! Magnet Spike! Tonfa! Let's go! Though, truly, I don't think either of them should inherently make a one-to-one transfer. The Magnet Spike is too grossly overpowered, and I don't think the Tonfa is different enough. It certainly is, don't get me wrong, but I do think there is perhaps elements from both you could draw into either the existing weapons or an entirely new 15th, but probably mainly the former. There certainly is mechanics on them both that I think would be nice additions to existing weapons, but I think in their entirety there is just a lot of work to do to make them fit and feel right in the power level of Monster Hunter and alongside the actual weapons we already have. But staying on the weapon front, I mean, this moment here says what I want to best. Firstly, I need you to know that I am a
Long man!
Holy fuck! That's the fucking biggest screenshot I've ever seen! Yes! I would love to have weapon size actually become a thing, especially with seemingly the ability to carry around 2 weapons thanks to the mount and the weapon pouch. If that's how that happens, Frontier's penchant for having a tiny greatsword or a massive greatsword, the other weapons too, to actually control the range of your attacks, and there's trade-offs to think about in that regard, would be really neat. Then I could have a tiny greatsword and a massive greatsword as my 2 greatsword options, then hopefully strap them together and have a giga greatsword. I digress, but you could see why that would be a lot of fun to actually have more parameters than just sharpness, raw, and element that goes into, and I guess affinity that goes into weapon choice. Adding a 5th layer in literally size might add another little level and a bit more complexity to builds, and you might take a statistically weaker weapon that's got that reach advantage because the extra DPS you get, the extra safety is worth it. And by extension, this isn't really a Frontier thing, but the idea of having blunt and sharp versions of weapons, like for example the classic Valhazak hammer being an axe and therefore should be cutting damage, is also something I think would be a really nice shake-up. But in general, I do think an extra dimension of weapon choice can certainly not be a bad thing, but it entirely depends on what, you know, the mechanic of Wilds is. The wire bug and your silkbind attacks equivalent, the clutch claw equivalent. Will it be based on the mount and weapon swapping and swap attacks and such, in which case we might not need that extra complexity, so it remains to be seen. But yeah, of all the things in Frontier, I do think weapon length variety, as perhaps subtle as it is, might have the kind of fundamental effect that would refresh an entire weapon lineup, and it also kind of makes sense that weapons would vary in size, right? They're not going to all be made to the exact same specifications, especially from different monsters and different material limitations. So that's kind of where I wanted to go here and look at that Frontier future that is possible and what it still might give us. For now then, let me know what your thoughts are, and if you could bring anything over Frontier that isn't just one of their weapons or one of their monsters, what would it be? What mechanical substance would you absolutely adore if it made its way into Wilds? For now then, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more. Consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.